Catherine Wensley, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yes, lovely to see you. Lovely to meet you properly. And
Yeah, you
thank
too.
you for making contact.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you for getting back in touch with me.
Well, I couldn't not get back in touch with you, could I? Let's face it. You said you had a story that you'd like to share with people to try and which carried a message that could make everyone feel better and make better versions of themselves, essentially, which is everything that Wellity is about. Which I responded to, and then you came back with an email that I read with my hand. I told you, didn't I? With my hands across my mouth. I couldn't quite believe it. So where we start with this is, shall we work from the reason that you made contact with us, what it was you wanted to, I suppose, share with everyone and why?
Yeah. Okay, so I got in touch with you because I've seen you giving podcast interviews, and I want to share this story because I think the more people that hear it, the more it will give them the confidence to open up. And this sort of thing is sadly quite common, these things that happen. And if a person can hear this story that is hiding some emotional trauma, or maybe doesn't even realize that what they're carrying around is emotional trauma, then this might resonate with them and make them open up, which will then open the doors to an easier life.
It's almost like you've got your purpose now. You've
Absolutely.
discovered, you've discovered a purpose, which you're carrying out with passion, which are two very strong emotions when driving essentially what will be your purpose now in career. I mean, you're dedicating yourself to this, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah, totally dedicated to this.
And it's centered around childhood trauma, and perhaps and we'll come on to your experiences in a minute. And it's essentially what happened might limit people as you get older, as you go through your careers, and become a real self-limiting factor. But what I think you're saying is that people don't know. It's not that people can't deal with it. People don't know that this is the actual reason that life is maybe holding them back.
Absolutely, yeah. I personally, I didn't realize that I was carrying around emotional trauma. I just thought it was normal to feel like that. And yes, I mean, I was a horse trainer for a lot of years, and I was successful enough, but everything was just a struggle. Everything was hard. I never felt good enough. I never felt like I was doing a good enough job, and everything was just a struggle. I just didn't have any belief in myself, and that was all because I was carrying around emotional trauma.
And what was the feeling? Because not feeling good enough is terrible. No, really. I mean, not feeling good enough for who? And why should other people's opinions of you be any more valuable than yours of your own? So that means that things have been dented in the past somewhat. That means that you've been hardwired or affected by negative influences.
Yeah.
What was the actual physiological feeling? Like, were you down, or was it just something that's lingering?
Yeah, so uber sensitive to criticism. The slightest little, constructive criticism I would take as, you are the worst horse trainer in history, or even as something as simple as somebody saying, oh, so-and-so over there did a really good job on that horse. To me, in my head, as I was, that was saying to me, you're the worst trainer in history. And it was just a warped sense of reality. I was a good horse trainer, and I can say that now. I couldn't say that then. I set up my own training barn in England and in Canada. Looking back, I was successful, but at the time I just thought, I'm just hanging on here by a thread. I'm just fooling everybody, just surviving with this. And also the other end of it, if people were too nice to me, I was very emotional. I would never show it outright. I would never cry in front of people, but if people were too nice to me, I would just really crumble inside. I just would rather people just be level, no criticism and no affection.
I suppose, I mean, I relate to this because of, I suppose, the period that I was in once, and it is that feeling that it's not good enough. It's like you think that people maybe aren't being sincere, either in compliments or in negativity.
Yeah, and so another little example of hidden emotional trauma would be if someone was to say to, or if someone gave me a compliment, for example, if someone said, oh, you look really pretty, or that's a really nice blouse, or something like that, then I would instantly come back with a derogatory comment about myself, instantly, while I've got a load of makeup on, or something, anything, just to deflect the compliment, which is really common, really, really common.
So before this, I was looking through your website with you in the catch up that we had prior to this, and we were on your website, Hope and Organisation.
Aspiration.
Hope and I can't read my own writing. Hopeandaspiration.com.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing that comes up is a lovely picture of you in a bright blue dress, and I said, "Wow, that's a lovely image. You know, nice dress." What was your thoughts then? Do you still carry any of that then?
No, I just let it come in now. I've done a lot of self-work, and you have to do self-work. You absolutely have to look at yourself and do self-work and learn to love yourself. So, I mean, you don't, when someone gives you a compliment or says anything nice to you about your work, your appearance, anything, you don't have to make a big deal out of it and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Just let it come in, just take it in, and just be neutral about it.
Yeah, say thank you, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right, so we know why you're doing this, and we'd like to get you to speak to, I know that when we spoke, you said, I'd love to go into schools and education and talk to kids about it. My initial reaction is, I don't know, will kids even know they're actually going through it at the moment? And is actually, as well as the children, because there is a huge education piece there, is there another piece with the adults who maybe, like we said, maybe burning on 2 cylinders instead of 4 and thinking, I'm a bit flat, I'm a bit ugh, and I'm getting on in life, and what's holding me back? And this could release that in them.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always an underlying reason for why you're feeling as if you're running on 2 cylinders. Yeah, there's something underlying for you to feel like that. And yeah, kids and adults don't know that they're carrying it around. They just think, like I said, you think it's normal to feel that way because you don't know anything different.
Okay, so what's the feeling then? As an adult, say, I don't know, let's choose, it could be anyone, say mid-40s. Me, yeah. So what is the feeling?
Flat. You're not good or not trying. For me, I would say not trying. You're not working hard enough. You're not trying hard enough, and putting too much pressure on yourself when you're you're really doing all you can, but it's never good enough. You just never give yourself a break. Push, 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 but never feeling like you get there.
Is it fear? Is it fear that you might be good, but you don't know quite how to deal with it? Fear that you might fail? What is it?
That's an interesting question. Fear that you might fail. Yeah, fear that you might fail for not trying hard enough, maybe. I mean, I can only say that from my own personal experience. Fear that you might fail from, to try harder and ensure you don't fail by pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. But if you push too hard, as you know, it'll just all cracks.
Yeah, and I know some people fear success as well, as bizarre as that sounds, because we at least we feel at home in our environment that we're in, whether that's pretty bad or, having a mope or a drink or whatever it is. At least that's familiar to us. And it's the unfamiliarity of that. Well, I'm sure it will be better and I want that, but it's, I suppose, trusting life is the education piece to get you there in the middle.
Yeah, well, we want to be, our brain wants to keep us in the familiar, doesn't it? Because that's the safe place. So when we try and step out of that to reach our success, our brain is saying, no, just come back here and we'll just stay here and we'll just be, failing. And then we'll be familiar and safe.
Okay, so, yes. So we've got to the point of why you're doing that now. I'd like to rewind. I'm going to take you through some events that happened in your childhood. Deep breath. As I said to you before, I still feel like I'm talking to you as if you were a 14-year-old girl, because that's when everything unfolded for you.
Yeah.
What you've said is actually you're okay to talk about this now.
Absolutely. Like I said, it was a long time ago, and I've done so much work on myself now. I've also told this story quite a few times now, and I feel so distanced from it to me, when I look back at it now, it's like a movie I once watched. That's how I see it. I just don't see myself as that girl anymore. We're two completely different people.
Okay, well, tell us about the girl that you're not now. From the start, Catherine, tell us about you. Tell us what happened.
So I started life as a normal kid. I was obsessed with horses, totally obsessed. No one knew why. My family were not into horses. My mother liked them, but no one had a career in horses or anything like that. I had pony posters all over my walls and my ceiling, and I was just obsessed. That's all I wanted to do. And my mum and dad did find me enough money to have riding lessons, which was very good of them because there was not a lot of money. And then outside of that, or when there wasn't enough money, I would just ride whatever I could, borrow ponies off people and just be at the stables with ponies. That's all I wanted. And I wanted to be a horse trainer when I grew up. Mm-hmm. And so I made, when I was about, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, I made this game up called the Pony Game. And the Pony Game was where I was a horse trainer and I would trot around all day on imaginary ponies, pretending I was a horse trainer. And that was the Pony Game. Anyway, so time went on, and when I was 13, we moved house. We were just on the outskirts of the countryside, and we moved closer to a town, a fairly rough town. And my mother and father were not getting along. My mother's quite a difficult woman. She's got a lot of trauma from her past, and she's quite a bitter woman, quite toxic, very negative, and she gave my father quite a hard time. And when we got to I got to 13, he just couldn't take it anymore, and he left. Well, the problem was that all that toxicity she directed toward him, she then directed straight to me, because I was the oldest child, and she blamed me for him leaving. She said it was because they were arguing because of me. I was quite close, well, not close in a normal family sense, but close for my family to my father, and my mother was quite jealous about that. Anyway, so if I wasn't at school, or so when we moved to this new house, about a 20-30 minute walk down the road was a horse sanctuary with other animals there, and so I would go down there as much as I could and help them. I absolutely loved it. This woman, it was not a sanctuary, she was more like a crazy animal hoarder, but I loved it there. So if I wasn't at school, I would be at the animal sanctuary, the horse sanctuary. But then on an evening when I had to be in the house, I just couldn't bear to be in the house with the energy, the toxic energy. So I would just go out. I would just leave, and if my mother would lock the door, and I would jump out of my bedroom window onto the sort of like porch bit roof, and then hop down and off I'd go. And so I would just roam the streets. I just didn't want to be in the house. I just wanted to be out, away from that. And so I made friends with the local guys in the kebab shop, in the local kebab shop, and they were really nice to me, and they would give me free food and free drinks, and tell me I was lovely, tell me I was pretty, and tell me that they were my friends, and I would go and see them quite a lot. I would go and just swing by there and eat or whatever. And so the one night, one of the guys said, "Do you want to go for a drive?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be amazing. Why, that'd be so cool." So he jumped in the car, and well, he finished the shift, the shop closed, and he jumped in the car, and then 3 other guys got in the back of the car, and then they took me to a bar. I won't mention the name of the town. It took me to a bar, and I remember it clear as day. It was really empty in the bar. There was a woman sitting at the bar, and she was watching me, and she wouldn't take her eyes off me. I always remember that woman. And they just basically plied me with drink. I mean, got me so drunk very quickly. And then they didn't take me home. They took me to a house, which was like a shell. It was a shell of a house. And they took me into a room where it had literally a bare mattress, a table and a wardrobe. I still remember that as if it was yesterday. And then it's quite a blur, to be honest. I don't know if it's because it was so traumatic or because I was so drunk and it was just so many comings and goings, but there was between 3 and 5 of them. and they basically just shared me out and did what they wanted to me. There was intercourse, there was other disgusting things, and it's like, I can only explain it, but it's like time stopped. Time just stopped, and it's like looking out from being underwater. That's how I can describe it. So, but I mean, I was incredibly lucky. I was incredibly lucky. They took me home that same night. I was so lucky, and they took me to my house, and well, they didn't take me into my house. They dropped me off, and I went in, and I just went to bed, and just thought, oh my goodness, what? I was numb. I was completely numb, and I had nobody to tell. I didn't know who to tell. I felt so stupid. I felt desperately shameful, and obviously used and embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. So I didn't tell anyone, and I just brushed it under the carpet and thought, well, it's happened. I'm never going to go near them again. I never want to see them again. So I just continued with my life, and I went to school and went to the horse sanctuary. But the problem is, with emotional trauma, it presents itself in other ways, and I started drinking, and I was stealing alcohol. I got caught stealing alcohol from the local shop, and I found self-harm to help me release it. And self-harm is so, unfortunately, so common, and I would not recommend it to anyone. It's awful, but it absolutely helped me, because it was the only thing I had to release it, because I had no one to talk to. It was all I had to release my pain. So the problem was, when I was in school and they would try and make me get undressed for PE in the girls' changing rooms, and I refused, for one reason, because I didn't want to take my clothes off. I didn't want anyone to see my body. And another reason is because I had self-harm wounds on me, all over me. So then I was labelled as disruptive, and because I was sort of highlighted and I was very low confidence, no self-esteem whatsoever, the bullies very quickly swooped in on me. And to avoid that, I would start playing truant. I just thought, I just don't want to be around people. This is just getting worse and worse. So I would start playing truant, and I would go to the horse sanctuary as much as I could, who would welcome me with open arms, because I'd work my butt off for them. And then so at 14, I was excluded for repetitive truancy. And then at 15, they sent me to another school in a different part of the county, and the bullies swooped in almost instantly.
Catherine, sorry to interrupt. When you said you started drinking and everything else, I presumed you meant later in your career. Do you mean you started drinking at 13?
So yes, 14.
And
yeah.
14. And look, I've got to take you back, because, you know, I've got kids of that age. I was listening to that, feeling physically sick. To your story, you've told it a few times, and obviously you've relived it, so perhaps it's not as raw to you, but to anyone else listening to that with children that, you know, that they do adore, it does make you feel physically sick. Now, you know, as much as wanting to get hold of these guys myself and teach them a good lesson, who did you have there for you? What was the immediate thing that you did? I mean, you felt shame and guilt when you got back. There was no one that you told?
No, I haven't told anybody.
I feel so sorry for you. I feel so sorry for that girl.
Oh, the girl, yeah. I feel sorry for that little girl. I do. I feel sorry for her. Yeah, but I don't feel sorry for me. No way, not at all. Yeah, I mean, I drank, and I still drink, and I had this one friend in school, and she didn't have a great home life. I'd say she had a mother and a stepfather, and she was not very happy, and we would steal alcohol off her mother, and so I was gonna pop this in, because it's kind of relevant. So when I was 14, I was taken to hospital for alcohol poisoning on drinking Bacardi, and when I was in hospital, they found all the self-harm wounds on me, and they wouldn't let me out. They wouldn't release me until I'd seen a counsellor, and I saw a counsellor, and then they just let me go. There was
How
no.
were you self-harming? What were you doing?
Just slicing my arms open.
With what?
My arms and my stomach. Anything. Broken glass, a broken beer can, like a lady's razor. Just break the plastic off. Anything.
Why? I mean, what was going through to help parents understand, and perhaps children who are doing the same? What does that do? What does it give you?
Okay, so the self-harm, the wound is actually irrelevant. So don't focus on the wound, because that's what people do. They focus on the wound and they freak out because it's horrible. I can appreciate that. It's horrible to see. It's a release. It's just releasing. For me, there's different things. Some people do it for control. Some people do it to hurt themselves because they hate themselves. For me, it was a release. It was releasing pain because I couldn't talk about it. So it was releasing pain.
How does hurting yourself release pain psychologically?
Gosh, how could I explain that? Gosh, I don't even know how I could explain that. With the blood, I don't know. It just feels like a release. It just feels like it's coming out when you open up your skin and it bleeds. It feels like the pain's coming out. That's it. I've just said it. That's exactly it. I've just said it. You're releasing the pain. So you're making the pain, the emotional pain that you're feeling that's invisible, you're making it tangible and real. That's it.
Thank you. And when we fast forward to older people, and as you move on and you haven't expressed that, and perhaps you're not self-harming, do you cover that up in different ways? Does that then suddenly become like medicinal drinking almost?
Absolutely. Promiscuity, drinking, drugs.
So it masks it all.
Definitely.
And you hadn't told anyone at this time, had you, about your experience?
No.
I know you may be coming on to this, if I can just jump. How long was it between you being 14, wasn't it?
Yes.
When that evil event happened, so that when you first ever told someone about it?
Oh my gosh. I told my ex-husband, which was... Sorry?
Was that the first time you told anyone?
That was in, say, 2010, something like that, 2010, 2011.
Okay, now I see that almost as big an event as what happened to you, because what you are holding between those times of when it happened and there, finally, and all that self-harming, drinking and everything else that was masking it. And we see people, coming out with various things now in public life, and they're saying it's the best thing they've ever done, because what they were fearing would happen hasn't happened at all. They've been completely accepted in whatever they're coming out about, whether it's drugs, drink, sexuality, whatever. Now, what was the build up to when, were you married to your husband at the time?
Yes.
So you'd married him without telling him?
Yes.
When, crikey, talk us through what the events that led you to unveil what happened.
Well, I think I was very distrusting of men, and I came across as very, very harsh, very cold, and I didn't really let him in. Well, I did actually let him in. He was the first one I really let in. He was the first man I really let in, and he knew there was something underlying, because you can't be that cold and that mistrusting to somebody that you're in a relationship with, unless there's a very valid reason. So we just got talking, and I just felt that I could open up to him, and I could. He was very good at that. He was very, he was a big man. He was very almost fatherly, like a big, warm, protecting person. So
it took a parent figure to get it out of you, in a way, in the end, someone who made you feel
I suppose he was a parent figure. Yeah, he was.
And was it drink fueled?
Yes.
So it was drink fueled, and did you have to take a very deep breath before you said it?
Yes, it didn't come out in like, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. This is how it started.
Yeah, that's right.
It was sort of,
Oh, another thing.
it was bits and bobs. It came out in bits and bobs, and sort of, you know, when that happened, and you know that happened because of that happened. So yeah, it came out in dribs and drabs, and not like the long story. It's a long story, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's kind of a short story about what actually happened, which sort of painfully gets to the point very quickly. And what was his reaction?
He was very protective. He would have hurt them if he would have come across them. He was a very protective person.
And what was your reaction? Because this is the biggest cut of them all, isn't it? This is letting it all out in one go. It feels like, you know, the balloons pop, you've just let it all out. Did you sigh a big sigh of relief?
I did a little bit. I felt very safe with him, which is why I married him. I still hadn't dealt with it. I still was carrying it around, and I still was shielding myself, I suppose, from getting too close to somebody.
What were you fearing? That he might reject you?
I don't know. Hurt me, let me down, expose me. I didn't want to feel completely vulnerable with him, although I was vulnerable to a point because I had obviously told him a lot. Yeah, I think fear of him exposing me, ridiculing me, saying, "Well, you're stupid. Why would you let such a thing happen?" And you know, it's telling someone else is the first step. Just absolutely telling someone else is the first step. Someone that you can trust or resonate with. But then you've still got to deal with it yourself. That's not just going to fix it. Just because you've told somebody, you've still got to face it yourself and accept it yourself, and then work past it.
So it's fear. I keep hearing fear of fear of someone telling you off, fear
Judging you, yeah.
Fear of judgment, fear of that, fear of everything else. Just tell me, is it? And now you've told one person, and now you're telling everyone else. Do you think there'll ever become a point where you might report them?
I have thought of that. I don't even know if that shop's still there. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't got to that. I have thought that's going to come up at some, and it's come up in my head. Yeah, it certainly is something I should. I don't even know if the shop's still there, but I mean, it is something I should consider, simply because. But I tell you what. So I don't know if it's because of that or just because I've been unlucky or in the wrong place at the wrong time. But all through my life, I've built relationships with men, quite often older men, and they've let me down. They've come on to me. So at 16, I moved into the horse sanctuary, moved away from my mother and moved into the horse sanctuary. And there was this guy there, and he was in his 60s. He was retired. He was a retired, you know, a London guard or something quite, you know, in the red.
Like a beefeater.
Yeah. So he was a proper, you know.
But that's what we used to call them when I was a child. Anyway, I don't know if that's politically correct nowadays.
No.
in the light of everything, but that's what we call them as kids.
Anyway, yeah. So he would come. I was living there, and he would come down and help me do the horses and stuff in a day. And he was like a father figure, you know. He would help me, and we would talk. And he taught me how to, because I walked all hunched over and just didn't want anyone to see me. And he taught me how to walk properly and proud and.
I dread what you're about to say.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he let me down. I was making a cup of tea for him one day, and he ran his hands up my shirt, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Anyway, so that, but it's been like that all the way along. Anyway, so the reason I've jumped off topic here. So in 2017, I was working in Ireland for a little bit. I went and ran a little business for someone for a couple of months. She was in England, and she rented her premises from her father, who was in his 70s.
Oh,
and
God. No.
Honestly. And so anyway, one morning, it was a horsey establishment. I was running the office for her. I went into the tack room one morning. He was in the doorway, and he properly sexually assaulted me. stuck his hand up my top and grabbed me between the legs, and he said, "Oh, I'll show you, I can still get it up." Oh,
What? How old?
he was in his 70s, 72.
And how old were you?
This was 2017, so not long ago. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that is because they had a lot of young girls working there. There was, you know, like girls from different countries would come and help for fun.
Yeah, like summer jobs or something.
Yeah, and I thought, I don't feel comfortable leaving this because of those girls. And if he's going to do it, does he do it to those girls? And I asked them very subtly, and they said, no, he's never done anything. But it still didn't sit right. So I went to the police.
Oh, well done.
And the police said to me, well, you look all right. Are you sure you want to bother with this? Because it could take up to 12 months to get to court, to get to trial. You'll have to then come back and stand trial. So basically, he said to me, love, I wouldn't bother. It's too much hassle.
So, sorry, can I just... So a policeman said to you, don't report...
He said, you can do it if you want. You can go down that road if you want, but it will take up to 12 months to get to trial. And he basically said, because you look all right. I mean, I was sat there, you know, like this. I wasn't traumatized. I was more disgusted. And I was more worried about the other girls. And he basically said, if I was you, I wouldn't bother because it's not worth the hassle.
Right. And because of that, and because potentially because you didn't, then other girls who potentially had it done to them didn't get it. So that's a whole load of you living with being molested.
Possibly,
and
yeah.
Potential traumas going forward.
I mean, I did ask them, and they all said, none of them said, yeah, he did anything to me. I mean, I didn't tell them, but none of them said anything. But that's what I mean. So that's what I'm saying. You know, you start opening a can of worms, and it's very difficult. But very difficult for the police. Have got a lot on, and I know these sexual exploitation cases go on a lot, and not a lot of them go to trial.
Another topic, maybe another conversation.
Yeah.
I got myself a little bit riled up about that, thinking. Now, look, here's a question for you. Why would you report? I suppose would be worried about the other girls being sexually exploited, but perhaps not report your own of what happened. Is there maybe a distancing? It's to talk about someone else, but maybe not an acceptance to talk about what happened to you. Possibly,
and this was 2017, like I said, and the only reason I did it was because of the girls there, and you know, I have a voice now. I'm a completely different person, so I can say no, that's not acceptable. At the time when I was 14, there's just no way. I mean, I was shut down. I couldn't say anything to anybody, and so just to jump back onto the sexual exploitation cases, what happens is a lot of the police, and I'm not slating police because I think police are amazing, but what a lot of them say is it's the girl's life choice, because grooming is so sinister and manipulative. You know, it's not standard rape. It's illegal, but it's not standard rape. You know, it's a life choice. I chose to get in that guy's car, so that's what they say a lot of the time. It's not exploitation. It's life choices.
Yeah, can we just not talk like that at all?
Sorry.
It was rape. It was categorically rape. It was gang rape by the sound of it to a underage child. So
it's totally illegal, yeah.
Yeah, it's completely illegal, it's immoral and everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me. Just listening to this, honestly. What an interview. I'm taking all this myself. You take over from now. You talk about, crikey, there's a story, honestly. You talk about delayed reaction. That the way you feel now is obviously very different to how you felt then. And trauma may have appeared in other people's life in a different way, through grief, through debt, divorce, loss of anything, perhaps, you know, holding secret their whole life or something like that. And there's a delayed reaction. So you're finding yourself now, but when do other people realize this?
Well, sometimes I don't think they ever do. Or sometimes maybe they do, but they maybe get an inkling of it and then think, well, I don't want to face it. It's too scary, so I'll just push it back down because I don't want to look at it. So, well, if you're going to do that, if you're going to push it down, it's going to present itself in other ways. It has to. So negative emotions will present themselves in negative behavior. There's just no way around that.
Yeah, and your slogan now, according to your website, hopeandaspiration.com, got it right, is as you think, so shall you be.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a transformation, isn't it? And what a fantastic lesson or seminar or talk or anything to give to adults to say exactly that message. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So it's as you believe about yourself, what the things you believe about yourself, you will put forward to the world. But until you've dealt with whatever you're hiding and carrying around and accepted it and confronted it and put it to bed, you're never going to believe great things about yourself, because it's always going to be pulling you back. So the first thing to do is uncover the underlying reason why you're feeling like you said, on 2 cylinders rather than 4. Why you're feeling a bit flat, why you feel like you're not achieving. There's a reason, and it might not even be obvious, but it's there. The reason is there somewhere.
Do you have to search for it then? Do you have to go, look, I've been feeling like this for ages. In my case, when I had my down period, it was because I didn't give myself permission to be happy. It was like I felt familiarity in the surroundings of being down, because I kind of knew it would be the same tomorrow. So I knew I didn't have to do a lot, didn't have to make a lot of effort. It was a horrible time. And I know people have had it lots worse. And I've spoken to people who liken it to being at the bottom of a well that's got slippery sides, and they can hear life going on at the top, but they feel down at the bottom, kind of trapped, but don't really know what to do or why they're feeling it. Now, if anyone's feeling like this, speak to Catherine, and obviously speak to counsellors. What are the first steps?
Counsellors are great. I obviously didn't have a great experience with mine. I just felt that she was ticking off a check sheet. I think if you're going to speak to them, it's got to be somebody you can resonate with and trust, or a complete stranger, maybe online or something like that. But you've got to be able to build a connection and build a relationship, because just talking to someone sat in an office with a clipboard, you can't possibly feel comfortable with somebody like that. So I don't know, for me personally, just getting a counsellor, any old counsellor, I don't think that's wise. I think you need to find someone you resonate with.
Right, okay. So the first step would be, if you're feeling a bit down, just find, maybe digest this sort of content. Maybe look for stories of other people who have been through it. I know you know Madeline, who is a friend of Wellity's. And so find someone with a relatable past or story that resonates with you. Find someone that you resonate with. And you can look around and look at people's content and just see, and you'll feel it. You'll feel a connection to somebody versus somebody else, and go with that. Go with your gut feeling. What if it's a choice though? What if you're holding on to something that I know exactly what it is? Something's happened, or it may be that someone has done something, or they feel a certain way, or they feel ashamed for a perceived reaction that might happen when they tell someone about a lie that they've been living with or something. Is it just talk? Is it in some way you've got to, like you were self-harming, you've got to let it out in some way, but not self-harming, obviously.
So it would, if there's a choice, you want to be looking at the reason why you want to choose to keep it. Why do you want to choose to keep that? And then work with that part. So if that's fear of whoever judging you, why would you fear them judging you? Do you know what I mean? So go around it. Never if you face the problem head on, the presenting problem is never the actual problem. So by facing or trying to correct the problem that's presenting itself and going head on like that, you just find people shut down, or they can't. It won't come out. So if you go around about it and sort of go in through the side doors and go behind the problem, then it will present itself a lot easier.
It's all self-esteem and self-value, isn't it? Because if you don't have any self-esteem or self-value, you worry about what everyone thinks.
Absolutely.
You're at the top of your game and you're flying and you're on that upper vibration or whatever they call it. You're attracting opportunity in, and you're shining as opposed to being a dim light. Then you don't actually care what people think. So self-esteem comes in lots of different ways, comes in physical activity, comes in just a mindset, really. Just get yourself in a little bit of mindset. You can't be told to make yourself better though when you're down. You can't be preached to,
No.
because that actually makes it worse.
Absolutely. So self-esteem, yes, self-esteem is, I think it goes overlooked. It's so important. We have good self-esteem, and yeah, people can't just say, yeah, oh, come on, snap out of it. You're great. What's wrong with you? You've got to build it yourself. You've got to do it yourself from the inside out. And I always say with building self-esteem, it's such a tiny thing, and it sounds so silly, but it's a start. Just make your bed every morning. And I know a lot of people don't. Make your bed every morning as soon as you get out of bed. And it's just a first small achievement for the day to set you off on the right foot. And it's a tiny thing, so easy to do, but it will help. And it will also help you build other things. So, you know, set tiny little goals, achieve them, and all that will build your self-esteem. But make the goals small. You see, the problem is people set, right, that's it. I'm going to change. I'm going to lose all this weight. I'm going to get fit.
Be the CEO.
And then they set this massive goal and then can't reach it. And then they feel terrible. So just set small goals and achieve them, and just build yourself up slowly.
And anxiety is about worrying about the future. Say depression is worried about the past, anxiety is worried about the future. And I was worried, you know, everything was fast forwarding. So my anxiety would be like, oh, I'm suddenly 65, 70, I'm completely skinned, I'm on the scrap heap, I've ruined my life, everything else. And it was like so frantic. And that's what a lot of people go through. And you really just want to say, calm down, relax. Exactly like you said, you can't affect what's going to happen in 3 years today. Well-being is today. It's in the present. Make your bed, brush your teeth, just make sure you have breakfast before 12, just nice things. But with me, it was the way I was talking to myself was really bloody horrible. It got nauseous, and it was angry, and it was putting me down and everything else. Yeah. But then someone said, why don't you talk to yourself like you would a 5-year-old child? Like if a 5-year-old child can't, would you say, well, that's rubbish. You haven't had your breakfast. You haven't breakfast. You can't even make your bed. You're useless. You wouldn't, would you? You'd encourage, take in. And as soon as someone said that, I think inner critic and the way you talk to yourself is vitally important.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had this, as everybody does. Gosh, I still have, you know, things in my head. And the first thing is to recognize when you're doing it. So mine would be, so obviously having horses, I still have horses now in my life. I always will have horses in my life. And so if I'm mucking out, which is just a mind-numbing task, I'd have to use my brain at all. So thoughts will start coming in, and I recognize it, and I tell it to F off.
Yeah.
As if it's a person.
Good.
As if it's a horrible person. And then, but recognize it, and then either a good way to do it is, if you don't want to swear at yourself, that's fine. You could challenge it and then just switch it on the opposite. Say, you know, because generally it's a load of rubbish, the negative things we say, they're not really true. So challenge it and say, well, no, that's not true. You're talking out your backside. I am this. I'm actually amazing, and I'm great at this. So
it's funny talking to self-critic. It's even when, so now I'm all right. I mean, who knows what it'll be like next week, but now I'm fine. So I always start it with mate, or right, buddy, or come on, or something like that when you're talking to yourself, almost like you're putting your arm around, you know, yourself. And that way it's quite nice, even if it's, well, don't go for a run tonight if you don't want to, because, you know, you did one yesterday. Let's have a pizza tonight, and let's go out. Make sure you do a longer one tomorrow, shall we? It is transformational how that voice changes in your head. Mindset. Now, look, some people say that they box trauma off, put it in a box, lock it up, chuck it in the river, don't want to see it. I'm me now, I'm different. Others have said that there is more of a period where you embrace it, deal with it, talk about it, live with it, and learn and move on. Where are you on that? What have you done with your childhood trauma?
Mine's put to bed. I would say it like that. It's not locked up. It's there. It happened. It's like it's not behind a locked door. It's there, so I can reach on it, because I need it to use it to help people. So I need to be able to grab it. I've distanced myself from it. So I've dealt with it, and it happened. And I think now I've got my head around, because I'll, you know, as you do when things happen years after, you're like, oh, why me? Why did that happen to me? And as that, we go through that. But now I feel like I understand why it happened, or I understand whether this is, I should, crazy talk or understanding why something like that would happen. But for me, it's helped me get over it. Well, that happened because now I can help so many other people just by sharing that story. And if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have anything to give people in this area. So
I love that. I absolutely love that, because Wellity version 1 was the thing that led me to burnout. Self-esteem went down, everything else, hours, lots of other things happened in my life. So when that finished, it could have been like, oh, that's a failure. The only way I could turn a failure into success is use that as part of the journey. So almost like the end justifies the means, in so much as that will, if I'd have left it there, it would have been a failure. But now I've pivoted to, or we've pivoted to the appreciation that we have now for mental health, and with the passion that we've got in the sales arena, we're just saying, well, no, because this is version 2 and it's been born out of the effects of what happened on version 1. I want to get to a point where I can think that what happened to me made me stronger.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's the journey, and you're certainly telling people now and using it. So what are you doing now? You're going around, you want to go around schools, education, sharing this message?
Well, yeah, so obviously it's a bit difficult getting in schools right now, so I'm aiming for sort of late September, early October, when everything's a little more settled. So I want to obviously also, by telling a toned down story, I won't be telling quite so much detail to children, but just, the dangers, really just putting the message across what can happen if we don't tell people we've had a traumatic experience. So by telling my story and then talking about the effects of hidden emotional trauma to students, but also to teachers, because noticing things like behavior changes and self-harm and bullying. If a kid's all of a sudden being bullied, why is that kid being bullied all of a sudden? Or why has that kid started bullying all of a sudden? There's a reason, and that's what goes overlooked. Behavior changes, they go overlooked, and that's the early intervention I want to put in place. It gets down the road of the kid's been sent to a PRU or has been excluded or vice versa. And then it's too late for me, the damage is done.
They say that anxiety is like a bully, and things that hold you back is like a bully, a self-limiting inner critic. And the only way, and shame gets stronger in silence, i.e. if you don't tell anyone, like what happened to you, I bet those guys, don't tell anyone because it's shameful. Now, when you talk now, you're effectively beating the bully of self-limit and inner critic, because you're saying, hang on a second, you're telling me to keep quiet about it because that makes you stronger. You're telling me to drink at night because then I'll have a hangover. It'll make you stronger and me weaker. Actually, I'm not having it anymore. I'm going to tell everyone about this. Every time you tell this story, do you find yourself getting a bit stronger?
Yeah, I do. I feel pretty strong anyway. I feel pretty unbreakable, to be honest, which is an amazing feeling. Every time I tell this story, yeah, I guess I do feel stronger. Yeah, I just want to help people. I want to help people hear this, and stop hiding emotional trauma. Speak, just deal with it.
Shame gets stronger in silence.
Look, for sure.
We want to help you, and we want to get this message out. At Wellity, we normalise the conversation around mental health in a bid to make everyone become better versions of themselves. And if talking about this matter frankly and honestly helps people, and if you could go into a corporate arena as well, talk about this, I'm sure this will resonate with hundreds and thousands of people. So I can't thank you enough for coming on this and sharing your story. I just want to ask you a couple of things. Bear in mind everything that you've been through, from the things that happened in your early days to transgression later in life and onwards, and now you're you sit there. I know you shouldn't go on appearances because it could be behind the eyes, but you look strong and determined, and we'd love to help you get your message out. But after considering everything, what is your definition of well-being?
Self-love. Without a doubt, you have to learn to love yourself. Otherwise, you will let the wrong people into your life. You'll let the wrong people into your heart, and you'll invite those, you'll attract those wrong people into your life. So let me just give you a really quick tip on how to start loving yourself. And this is, again, it's so simple.
And you don't need to be quick, it's fine. Love this.
Okay. It's so simple, and actually really quite difficult to do. So I did this, So we look at ourselves in the mirror every day, don't we? When we're, I don't know, brushing our hair, our teeth, whatever. If you put your face up to the glass, like really close up to the glass, like 6 inches from the glass or something, look at yourself in the eyes, because we don't do that. We look at our face, we don't look ourselves in the eyes. If you do that, look yourself in the eyes and tell yourself, I love you, or you're amazing, or you've done so well, or look what you're doing, look what you're achieving, that's amazing. And just, it's quite difficult at first, but it will help you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone has a different definition of well-being depending on the life that they've had up to that point. And my second one is, everything considered, what would be your one takeaway? Say if you were presenting to either kids or the young or adults, what would be your one thing that you'd want them to take away?
Speak out. Speak up. If something happens, just tell somebody, anybody. There's always somebody to tell. And see, nowadays it's a lot easier because there's the internet. There's always people online, you know, there's strangers, there's all kinds of help groups and phone numbers and me. There's always somebody to talk to, always. You know, most children have a phone now, or access to the internet. So yeah, just speak out.
Right, thank you. And where can people find you? Where can people book you? How can they get in contact with you? I'm sure you're going to get a lot of feedback from this.
You can come to my website, hopeandaspiration.com. All my contact details are on there.
Right. Okay. And look, we can't thank you enough, honestly, because we want to share. This story will be taken by people who may be, looking for that, what's wrong with them, looking for how to self-improve and everything else. So thank you. You're great, and welcome to the Wellity community. And before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share.